Would anybody like to tell me how it's going, or anything surprising that's taken place that you weren't expecting, or has it been just wonderful? Anybody like to go first? Go on, risk it.
Oh, I'll go first. It's been I think it's I've been I think I was expecting, because we're doing year 7 right the way through, that in
Right.
year 7, sort of 7, 8, and 9, there would be some
Yeah.
children that maybe just hate drama and they're like, I can't wait to drop this subject. I can't wait to not be in this room. But actually, and I'm in a very big school, there are 2,700 pupils, and I obviously don't teach them all. But there's I can only sort of picture like one or two who really don't want to look like they don't want to be there. Everyone else is quite up for it,
Good,
which has been really nice. Yeah.
good. And what were you working on?
With year 7s, it was an introduction to storytelling,
Perfect.
um, which they really love.
Yeah,
Year 9s, physical theatre. Year 8s, ancient Greek theatre.
fantastic. Wow,
Yeah,
gosh, that sounds
a
like
lot.
a very exciting program. We can't do physical theatre here, unfortunately, on Zoom. Otherwise, would be my choice, of course. Um, and I think we can learn a huge amount from the Greeks, and I think that's really exciting that you're doing that. And storytelling is absolutely, I think, a requirement for every teacher. Should be, um, if they can't tell a story, then you're in the wrong profession, I think.
Yeah.
If anybody agrees with me. What else? Have other people been doing?
We've
Go
been
ahead.
doing, sorry, my mind just went blank for a second. We've been doing pantomime with the kids. We've just started pantomime
Oh,
and
lovely.
they are absolutely loving it. They're loving the idea of playing with these characters. We did a scene where they were in a bingo hall and all the kids got into like little fights over the bingo cards about who's cheating. It's been really great seeing their enthusiasm. And I think it's one of the kids said to me, it was like, it's nice to have a break when we're on our feet, we're doing something instead of just writing something down.
Doing something. I think that's the sort of the key word, isn't it? Where you're active and you're not just, you know, listening to the teacher do all the work. So, yeah, somebody else. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I thought there was a hands up thing. Oh, there's a reaction thing. Sorry. Yeah, I'm Eliza, and I this week I'm probably looking quite tired because I've been doing about 3 lessons a day. Actually doing like the full lesson, which has been pretty. I feel like I'm about to explode a little bit, but it's been really fun, and I feel like my one insight out of doing it this week is the power of drama, the kind of mwahaha of drama not being on the curriculum, um, which is something that I used to be really angry about, put it on the curriculum. But there's a beauty to it in the fact that you're kind of able to do whatever, and these drama teachers have a lot of power in the drama rooms to make or sculpt their own kind of curriculum, about being a human being, and how, yeah, following a structure obviously, but there's more play involved, which I think theatre should have anyway.
So you're feeling a bit freer in a way because you're not bound by the exact requirements of a curriculum. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point. On the other hand, it would be nice if there was more drama in
Yeah.
the curriculum, wouldn't it? Yeah. Um, Anybody? Yeah, go ahead. Somebody else was about to speak, I think. Yep. No? Okay. Did anybody try any Shakespeare with any of your classes? Yes.
We haven't done it in classes, but I'm helping out with the drama club at lunchtime. And the students themselves chose that they wanted to do the Tempest. So they'll be working on this just for half an hour every week in lunchtime, and putting on, I guess, parts of it, perhaps not the whole thing. in March time.
Oh,
And
lunchtime, yeah. I mean, I think you can kind of squeeze drama in wherever you can, whether it's lunchtime or, or in the curriculum, even if it's not on the curriculum. Yeah, just get it in wherever you can. And in a way, I think there's a freedom in that, a bit like the not being on the curriculum, which can help. But I believe that among the texts that you possibly, this is what Theo's told me, you tried Romeo and Juliet, or was one of the texts you looked at?
That was Laura, you suggested you're teaching that.
Yeah,
Oh,
so not actually for drama, but my year 10 class are going to be doing Romeo and Juliet in English. They've just started. And I was actually speaking to the teacher that I'm working with, and she said I think it's the same for a lot of English teachers. They're a bit nervous about putting acting into the English classes. So we actually talked about it, and I'm going to try and deliver kind of drama within the English classes with that. So looking at a few specific scenes and getting them to act it out, because some of the girls that are in my drama class are also in that English class, and they love it. So I think it'll be a really good opportunity for them to explore the text. I mean, we were talking about it. Shakespeare's made to be performed. So rather than just reading it on text, it'd be lovely to actually get them to act it out in English class.
I think that's an excellent idea. And I began as an English teacher, and occasionally I feel the urge to give spelling tests, it's just to remember that once I was an English teacher. But it was through teaching English that I became interested in drama, because it seemed to me a way in to a text, though I didn't know much about it then. Did anybody try working in role during their various classes?
Emma, you could say what you've been up to.
I feel like I've got to the point where if I say that I'm going to get a special guest now to any of my classes, they're like, oh, who's she going to come in as now? Like, I just think it's so effective. Like, I really love teacher in role. I think there's nothing better to grab their attention and help them respond, because it's like they think that they're being naughty or being silly, but really when they're responding to you, however they're responding, they are in role. Like, they don't realize often, even if they're just questioning you in role, that they're actually then sort of responding to it. And yeah, I just find it really effective.
Absolutely. I think to get them, they may not, as you say, realize that they're already playing along with you, just even by asking questions. Could we do a little bit of drama now, do you think? And can we do it on, I was thinking of Romeo and Juliet, because that's such a popular text. Could you imagine, what Shakespeare says, entertain speculation, which I think is a wonderful phrase. And it's, I think it's in The Tempest, actually. So let us entertain speculation that we'll start at the end of Romeo and Juliet. And can you imagine we're in a press conference? And I've called this press conference because, as you know, there have been regime changes in Verona. It was inevitable, absolutely inevitable with what's been going on. Knife crime, rioting, drugs. It couldn't go on like that. So the prince and some of the other powerful families in the city are no longer in charge. Instead, we have a fine town council, democratically elected, I must say. And we're going to come up with a number of powerful suggestions for improving the way of life for our citizens here in Verona. Okay, so that's the opening. And if I were doing that in a class, I might possibly I could narrate it. I don't have to do that in role, I could just say the citizens of Verona have agreed to change the way the city has been run. So would you all think, as members of the town council of Verona, can we think how we might address some of the problems? You know, there's a lot of drugs, there's very, knife crime, young people fighting in the streets. What can we do to change it? Yes.
I'd say that we need to have members from the warring families present at our city council meetings at regular intervals, so that representatives from all the warring sides and factions are accountable and have to come and sit down and talk together to help.
An interesting idea. What do people think? Is it wise to give them a voice? I mean, I have to say they weren't very helpful, last time. It was a lot of this is their fault, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah, I think they've had their chance. We told them about that. We gave them a warning before. A lot of problems have happened because of them. I say we just have a curfew and we don't let the young ones out past a certain time. Then we want problems.
Yeah, so the young people have really been out of control, haven't they? And I'm inclined to agree with what you say, that those families, they had their chance, and what did they do? They just encouraged what was going on. And it's the young people we have to focus on. They're the future, aren't they? So you say that maybe a curfew, that they mustn't be out after a certain time. Good plan. I tend to support that. What do the others think?
I think we should put them in the stocks and then throw tomatoes at them, because it's in a way we're showing that this is your punishment.
Yes.
And it will make people not want to do it.
Oh, you mean the warring families or the young people?
The young people.
The young people. Humiliate them publicly. Yeah, that's a thought. I mean, the stocks haven't been used for a long time, but they're still there. Could get them out of the museum and try a bit of that. Yeah. So yes. Yeah. What's your idea?
I understand where you're coming from, but I have to say that a lot of the young people are blaming some of their elders for some of the tragedy that's been unfolding recently. I'm not sure, they are going to be the electors of the future. I'm not sure if it'd be a popular move to start to humiliate them or even imposing the curfew, although I think as an emergency measure, I suppose we have to show we're doing something.
Well, we do have to show we're doing something because, we've taken over in a way, and we do have to do something. And, the media are going to be after us wondering what we're actually going to do. So we need some solid plans. And I mean, the young people, they're very out of control. On the other hand, embarrassing them might not be ideal. Any other thoughts? Yes.
I think we should have some sort of training amongst us, a kind of security, basic, steps to take if things get out of hand. And I think we have to take it in turns and come up with a rota and just patrol. There'll be constantly someone on patrol. I don't mind going first. I'm a bit of a night owl. I'll do that.
So, yeah, so we need a great deal more security on our streets, is what you're saying. It's going to take more than that. But after all, could we, I think that's a very important idea, but I'm not sure that we are the people to do that. I mean, we have to maintain our status. If you think how those families behaved, thought they were above it all. And I'm not saying we should be like that, but we have to maintain our dignity as well. So But I'm wondering, security is important. Could we maybe train up some of the young people to, if we could kind of conscript them into a kind of street, what shall I say, security of the streets. We could call it the SS, they could maybe something like that. Would that work?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. So obviously that probably would be the boys, but what could the girls do? I mean, because actually, they're as out of control as the boys, maybe they could be employed in some way. What do you
Some
think?
kind of compulsory community service, keep them busy.
Keep them busy. That's absolutely the point, isn't it, with young people? Just keep them busy. And yes, I like the idea of community service. So they could be cleaning up. Maybe they could get some training in some of the buildings in very poor repair here in Verona, and maybe they could get some skills in that way, so that they're busy. But we would have to make sure that there was no meeting between the boys and the girls, because that's where it all began, a lot of these problems. I'm not saying that the older generation were much help, but really I think we...
No, they weren't much help. I think we've got the focus all wrong, focusing on the young people. I think we should have the parents on special measures of some sort.
Good point, the parents. Gosh.
Yeah, get them in and, tell them what's wrong with them. Give them some training or something.
Yeah. Yeah, oh, right.
Could I suggest maybe some form of family counselling or counselling between the two warring families to resolve their issues and difficulties and challenges?
So, I mean,
family counselling.
Family counselling, that seems to be an excellent idea. Now, who will do the counselling? Because obviously they would need to be parents themselves. So this is a job again for some of the older generation. So let me just go through what you've suggested, that there should be security on the streets and maybe train up the boys to maybe, clearly we wouldn't give them weapons, would we? No, perhaps not, but they could be trained in a kind of, I don't know, they'd need to feel that they were capable of protecting themselves, but in a non-aggressive way, and that the young women should do a kind of community service, maybe looking after the old folks or cleaning up, that kind of thing, and that the parents, and who would advise the parents? People who'd been parents already, obviously, and who had children. So we're looking at therapy, we're looking at security, and we're looking at community service. And we also have to remember that Verona is a very popular tourist destination. We don't want to lose that, attraction from. That's where a lot of our money comes from. So any other points that you'd like to raise? Yes. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, and I just, because you mentioned the drugs problem that we've got, and if anything's going to put the tourists off, it's going to be, finding out that we've got problems with drugs. So I wonder if we need to take control of the apothecary.
Oh, good point. We need to control the drugs trade.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying. And after all, we know that in some cities in Europe, I understand, in Amsterdam, I believe, it's popular because drugs are readily available. That's a problem, this one, isn't it? So where are the drugs coming from? Maybe we need to find that out. Who's supplying them? The apothecaries, of course, are the people who deliver them, if you like, to their customers. Yeah, so maybe we need to set up some CCTV. What do you think? So we see who's using them when going in there.
Maybe infiltrate somehow, infiltrate into the apothecaries and see how they are getting some of this stuff arriving into them.
Yes, yeah. Gosh, so we have quite a lot on our plates. So what's the very first thing we should do? Of those things, control the drug trade, security our streets, taking care of the community, and parental advice sessions. Yes.
Well, first of all, I think we should get the security on the streets. I think we show everybody that we're serious about this, that we're watching, and hopefully that might reduce the crime a little bit anyway. People might think a bit more about their actions if they know that they're being watched by the guards.
Yeah, exactly. And what about weapons? Should we, obviously, we must ban the use of weapons. So people should, what do you think? Should people turn them in? Should they, should be a place where people could hand in their knives and swords and whatever else they have? Would that be a good possibility?
Well, perhaps we could do a trade. If they hand in their weapons, then we can reward them or something like that.
Laura, I was going to say that's a really good idea. I've heard another city giving subscriptions to the theatre to different kind of like vouchers for food and giving out things to people who are binning knives. So I think maybe we could give them something back that's useful for our community as well.
I think that's a wonderful idea. I think that could maybe one of the first things, because the security won't work if everybody's still got all their weapons. And I love what you say about giving something back. For example, the theatre. I mean, we have wonderful theatres here in Verona. Perhaps we could show them improving bits of theatre, which would show them the right thing to do rather than the wrong thing, or things that show the consequences of bad actions. I understand there's some plays that show when things go horribly wrong, which also could be entertaining. There could be some fun bits in them. Yes.
Well, perhaps if we're getting people into the theatre and getting a sort of enjoyment for theatre, we could have like a community outreach kind of theatre programme, working with people through some drama to try and help them to understand right and wrong.
Good thinking. We're really getting somewhere, people. I think this, and we'll be doing, we've been asked to, for the 6 o'clock news, to provide some updates on what our plans are. So we're really getting somewhere. So security, so actually maybe even begin with this weapon exchange thing, because that's so easy for people to understand. And then maybe the idea of offering entertainment, healthy entertainment. Would that work for the older generation as well? Could they be, instead of sitting down with a family therapist, would it be helpful for them to go to the theatre as well? Or if we chose plays that show them how older people should not behave? What do you think? Okay. Thanks very much for that. That was, you came up with some terrific ideas, and particularly like the knife exchange one. So who would like to do an item for the 6 o'clock news, just a little headline on the plans of the town council for improving Verona. Anybody like to have a little go at that? We could take a few minutes to think what you might say. Would that be okay?
Should they write it in the chat, the headlines?
Oh, right. I hadn't thought of that. What a good idea. Yes. Yeah, you
So
could.
then we could read them.
Yeah. Okay.
Everyone can do it at once. Yeah.
Yeah. So if anybody would like to write anything in the chat that would sort of indicate our thinking for improving Verona. Anybody going to have a go? Yeah. Love it. And would you like to read it aloud as well for
I said young thespians save Verona.
I love that, yeah. And somebody else said something about...
I said, townspeople rejoice as plans come together to stop the gangs.
Lovely. There is a rather tricky question which hasn't arisen so far. The church, I'm afraid, has not been very helpful in recent days. There have been occasions, I understand, where they have encouraged drug taking. And the thing is, it's a kind of tricky thing. We don't like to upset the clergy, obviously, but is there any way we can persuade them not to do that in future? Is there some I don't know, again, some encouragement, some discouragement? Should they be prevented from preaching? Should they be prevented from, carrying out weddings or funerals? We have something else in the chat, I think.
There's quite a lot now.
Is there? I'm finding.
Should we just go through and people read them?
Yes, that would be lovely.
There's quite a lot.
Yeah, it is dark. Yeah.
So let's start with so if we've heard young thespians save Verona. Kaz, off you go, and then we'll just read through all of them.
Where is my one? Oh, townspeople rejoice as plans come together to stop the gangs.
Lovely.
Ambitious plan to turn Verona around and make it safe for all citizens again.
Great.
Mine's a long one, so maybe the subtext.
Let's go, Eliza.
The city council have decided to improve Verona by providing community outreaches, partner with family therapists, and ban the weapons with incentives, which will create harmony for all.
Right.
Mine was the people fight back against crime.
Great. Yeah, neat. A nice, neat, strong headline.
There's much to do with hate, but more with love now in Verona. Swap knives for improving drama.
Yeah.
Theatre versus crime. Who will win? Stay tuned to find out.
Breaking news, big opportunity. Exchange your weapon for a theatre ticket. City Council comes up with a great plan.
Lovely.
Hooray or nay, Verona's council's plan will finally save the day.
Great.
There's another one. Sam? Modern anyway, that one, there's that one, and then Sinead, over to you.
Verona City Council finally putting the people first.
Oh, yeah, exactly. The people, these are very strong headlines. And I think I'll come completely out of role and just reflect on what we did. At the end of Romeo and Juliet, Prince, I think, says some will be pardoned and some punished. And that was what I was trying to get at, that where those lines about civil hands make civil lives unclean, that there was a lot going on, which could be reflected on. And I think the idea that you gave, I thought it was a wonderful idea of coming up with swapping the knives for theatre tickets, because of course, what plays would they see? That would be a perfect opportunity to segue from this sort of work right back into the text. See what I'm saying? You could then pick out scenes, the fight scenes or the love scenes, or those young people, they talk about intense, talk about suddenly getting involved, going from Rosaline to Juliet. And Juliet's, they spend 5 minutes in each other's company, and suddenly it's love for life. And it's incredibly intense. And the moments, in the tomb, or the moments at Briar Lawrence, or whatever you picked out, there's a real reason going from the role play stuff back into the key moments of the text. So would anybody like to comment on that? Would that work do you think? Yes.
Yeah, because it creates the opportunity to look at those moments, but interrogate them perhaps more fully, because you've got the purpose of doing it. So you're not just going to pick the bits, but you're going to, really, really put the focus and spotlight on them. And even deciding exactly which bit that's going to be done at a deeper level, isn't it?
Exactly.
You've got an intention.
Yeah.
Would the intention be almost that you were going to share these moments as a kind of improving drama? Is that?
It could be, yes. Yeah. I mean, this is the wrong thing to do. Do not, okay, the wonderful sonnet, the sequence when they meet at the dance, which I think is so beautiful, but if you did that and and then this is not the way to behave, so that in a way you're doing the opposite, which I think is sometimes a strong thing to do, or at least an interesting thing to do.
You could do a kind of boal thing where you stop, you see what the play says, stop it. Okay, what else could?
Exactly.
Which obviously destroys it, but
Yeah. Yes, I think it's a reason for, as you say, interrogating the text and really looking at it again, either to, if you like, deny it almost, but it won't be denied if I know Shakespeare. It's powerful enough to not to be destroyed by us playing with it, if you like. Yeah.
If you went down the counselling, the parents or the adults, if you go down that route, then there's good opportunities to revisit the text and work out which characters in the story needed a bit of counselling in how they're approaching things in life.
Yes, exactly. I mean, Capulet is an interesting one, because he, first of all, he's very sort of fiery and warlike almost, and it's interesting. Both the wives tell them to shut up, not be so stupid. So, but pays no, and yet then when it comes to the ball, the party, he say, oh, let them in, they're young, so he's very inconsistent in his behavior. I think maybe they ought to be in jail, maybe they should be, that could be an interesting task as well, in small groups, maybe to have the Capulets, including the wife, because again, the Lady Capulet is a bit of piece of work, isn't she? So I think it would be, supposing they were being interrogated almost like the police, or the where their wrongdoings were being really held up. They're forcing their child to marry. So, and that's an interesting topic in itself. So, any response to any of that?
If you took that route of counselling characters, great opportunities for teacher in role.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Yes, and in a different kind of a way, slightly, a sort of maybe, well, it doesn't have to be gentle. It could be quite savage if you wanted it to. So it's nice if the young people, as it were, tell you to be a bit kinder or a bit nicer. Sometimes that works also. A teacher that I know has been doing Romeo and Juliet with her year 5 or 6s, I think, or at least telling them the story. And they did some very interesting sort of practical work. They made masks for the ball, for example, because they understood, about that. This was a masked ball. Actually, that's another thing we've got to ban, isn't it? We can't allow people going around wearing balaclavas or hoodies. That's got to go, hasn't it? We can't have that. That would go along with the knife, the handover of weapons. So can you see? Yes, Thea.
I do think I think thinking also of English classrooms, because my PGC group is studying obviously to be English teachers and to be drama teachers, and we're thinking a lot about doing drama in English and how it's different from doing drama in the drama classroom. But to have to call the elders in a way to account, the people who are responsible, including the friar, and to perhaps you could have that as an encounter, but not hot seating. It would be more that the council perhaps have brought them in one by one and then was going to something like that, or the young people interrogate them.
Yeah, and you could also do that thing that I think works nicely, which is to go 20 years in the future and say, and supposing all these if you like, tasks have been undertaken. We've got security, we've got no knife crime, we've got improving plays going on, we've got the older people being told how they should carry on, we've got the church being restricted in its power. 20 years on, and this is something that people could do in twos, where one of them is somebody who was in Verona at that time of great social change, where the town council is imposing a number of quite strict rules on the town, and a young person who says, what was it like 20 years ago in Verona? And so they have to, if you like, in a way, sum up what he'd been talking about. Or, before there were all these changes, was it much more fun to be in Verona when you could go around fighting people in the streets or whatever? So they're reflecting if you like, from a distance on the whole thing. And I think that's very easy to set up in a classroom because, you know, you can just be sitting in your desks, you know, you don't have to do anything, you know, it doesn't have to be a physical thing. It fits into English teaching quite nicely as in a way, I think. Yes, Eliza. Yeah, go ahead.
Laura, thank you. Laura.
Oh, yeah, I think with teaching in the classroom as well, the idea of in Romeo and Juliet, who was ultimately responsible for the death, it would be quite a nice idea rather than just having that conversation, that debate, being like that side of the classroom, you're playing the older generation, and this side, you're playing the younger generation, and you're going to decide somebody needs to be responsible. So who is responsible? And they can work through it as these characters and have that kind of discussion. But I think rather than just talking about it, it would be quite nice to give them that side that they're working on, and they can talk about it like that.
Absolutely, that's a great idea. Yeah. Think of the people who died. Romeo and Juliet, obviously. Tybalt. Who else died?
Paris.
Paris died. I think there's another one. Is there, or is it just, think of those 4 young people who died. What might be written on their tombstones? What did they die for? What did Tybalt die for? What did Paris die for? Romeo and Juliet? Did they all just die for love? Or my only love, born for my only hate? What would be written on their tombstones? And if their ghosts came back, what would their ghosts say? And this doesn't have to be spoken. It could be written. It could be a nice writing exercise. You know, not everything has to happen, you know, in action. It's nice if it does, but in the English classroom, it can happen in other ways. And indeed, in the drama classroom, it can. So, and eventually, what advice would you give to young people about relationships? That'd be easily done, wouldn't it? So,
I was hoping the ghosts might make an appearance.
yes, they often do in my work. A bit haunted. Yes. Yes. So, yeah, so all of those are possibilities. But I don't know really, quite apart from Romeo and Juliet, what we've been, those possibilities. Would people like to comment, ask anything, come up with some wonderful ideas about what else you could do with The Tempest as a terrific text, for example, or anything else you've been working on that you would like to share or ask about?
Yeah, can I ask, in terms of like formation, I'm teaching in classes that are about 35 max. So for teaching role, there's a lot of students that could be answering, a lot of students that wouldn't want to answer, and I'm just interested in what would the best kind of formation be in the classroom for that to happen.
So is this English or drama?
Drama.
I find groups of about 5 are quite good. So if you got 35, that's a big lot. So if you've 6 or 7 groups, let's say, and I would give them a task. For example, what are the rules for the security people? You know, one group could make up those rules and another one could, I don't know, you know, depending on the text, but I would set each group, or maybe all of them, the same possibility, the same task, and then they could share it, or they could show us what happens. So if it's in drama, they could actually show us a group of these young people patrolling the streets. You know, is it really successful, or is it actually, the problem is there might be more violence than, than when you started off with. And what age are they, this group?
Well, it's any age from year 7 to year 10.
Oh,
But,
so
so
they're not mixed all together, are they?
no.
No. So yeah. So yes, it would. Yeah. Well, year 10 should be able to behave themselves, I think. But yeah. But I think I think groups of about 5 are quite good. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
But I was thinking about the question of starting off with teacher enroll, which I would recommend, even that though you have a group of 35, that is a very big group.
Yeah.
But maybe just keep it short.
Very short.
And then you can, don't you think, Cecily, staying in role, you can manage lots of them wanting to talk at once, because you just look, I just need to hear what this person is saying, but you can stay in role. What do you think? What do you think's effective strategies for managing so that you can hear one at a time, but maybe not for long?
So it depends on the particular class, and also, you know, how much, you know, what your objective is. I think sometimes I could see something like this starting off with some storytelling, just at the very end, you know, like the end of the play. You know, they closed the tomb, or they raised statues to Romeo and Juliet. So narration, if you're insecure, you know, and you do it well, I think works. But as you say, I think if you're in role, then you can, to some degree, command the responses you get and weave them in. But it so depends on what you feel comfortable with, and of course also the kids you're working with. Yeah, you could begin, you know, if you think they say at the end they're going to put up statues to Romeo and Juliet. And I've only just noticed that recently, that so if there's a statue in Verona, and you know, maybe I'm taking a tour group round, and you know, this is Romeo and Juliet. Of course, you all know the very sad story, but actually there's more to know. That could be a nice lead in to doing actual bits of the text. You know, these are, somebody just read these. We like to hand these out to our visitors, but here's just a copy of Juliet's last words. Perhaps you read those for us, and Romeo's last words, you know, and maybe we could just get a bit of hearing the actual text. So it's sort of sneaking up on them, is, I think, I would call that. But again, you know, it's a jumping off point. Yes.
So I, like Eliza said before, have classes ranging between 30 and 35. They're kind of like the average class sizes. And I get quite a lot of low-level disruption throughout, but things that need addressing, because if I let the low-level disruption happen, it spirals and then I've lost control of the class. So how would you break out of teacher and role to handle something like that? I mean, obviously, an emergency situation, of course you would, but I mean, with low-level stuff that's consistently happening.
And just a really annoying.
Yeah.
I started using teacher enroll. I didn't know how to stop. You know, and I remember, I don't know what, I think it was something in, I don't know, the Wild West or something. And I think I was an elder of an Indian tribe or of a native tribe. And I was, you know, complaining about our lands being taken. I don't know what was going on, but Gavin Bolton was watching me. I could see he was beginning to giggle. I was desperate to stop, but I didn't know how to. And it wasn't that the people I was working with were noisy, because they weren't, but I think probably just desperately bored. So I kind of, I kept trying to leave, and I looked at Gavin and I could see his mouth moving, and he was saying, "Her days are numbered." And I could read his lips. So I eventually stopped. So it dawned on me that it was as important to know when to stop as, when to begin and what to say when you have begun. So I think that shorter is better, I would say, that it's function, and it's definitely not acting, but it's a functional technique or strategy or whatever you want to call it. And it's less is more, I would say, generally. And so then you can, once there is a task to be done at that stage, whether it is deciding on who's going to run the streets or how we're going to stop the drugs, then you've got something for the kids to do. And in groups of that size, you might, for example, they could we see the CCTV of the tomb, what's happening? So they don't have to say anything, but the movement might be rather nice for them to capture. Or the CCTV outside the apothecary shop. Who's buying these drugs? So they're I think some of those tasks that follow on from the short teacher in role. Has anybody else found that? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering, okay, so imagine if you were doing kind of teacher in role for Romeo and Juliet in English, where there's that moment, I think, where she comes on and she's just been 3 hours a wife, and she's saying, "Shall I speak ill of him?" and all of that stuff. That would be a lovely point to be like, okay, let's decide on whether Juliet should actually stay with the person that's killed her cousin. If you have loads of, and I would probably agree with them, but loads of students saying, no, she shouldn't stay with him, kind of thing. She shouldn't be with him. He's just killed her cousin, kind of thing. How do you then move on to the fact that she does? And how do you kind of introduce the next part of the thing without kind of stopping their ideas from being wild and explorative and quite free?
I don't think I would do something like that in role. I think that's a discussion point. Do you think she should or shouldn't? What advice would you give her? That would be an interesting thing to do. Juliet, if you were, it's like sort of good and bad angels. If you were a good angel or an angel, what would you say to her? For heaven's sake, think what you're doing. This guy's a murderer. He's banished. You've got no hope here. Or would you say something else? So sometimes little sort of vignettes like that are more effective than it happening through the teacher. And somebody else had their hand up as well. Yes, go ahead.
This is slightly different, but I teach year 9. I'm teaching poetry to my year 9s at the moment, and one of the things we've been looking at is how poets create a persona. So I was wondering, how could I use teacher and role to help build upon those skills and the idea of poems being more of a performance?
So are these narrative poems, or are they?
Yes, they're narrative poems.
Poems. Well, something I've never done, but it's a very, gosh, I don't know. What have you been doing with them? You tell me.
I mean, we've been doing the Havisham poem recently, so I took on the role of Havisham, but I don't want to control their ideas too much. I want them to have their free reign over what it could mean to them.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, yeah.
I'm not sure I would use teacher in role, but somebody else has an idea. Yes, go ahead.
I wonder whether your teacher in role is not directly connected to the poems. So if you were somebody who was an artist or something, so your job is painting, and you've been approached to put these poems into your art form, pictures. So you're asking them to show you what they feel the poems, the center of the poems is, or look, center, you only have one center, don't you? So that they're going to, because I take on what you said, you don't want to crush their ideas, you want their ideas to come out. And it feels like poetry, in essence, is all about images. So it would perhaps lead quite nicely if you had like a visual, if your teaching role was a visual person or had a visual job to do, to come in. That'd be very Mantle, really, because you'd be kind of coming in to give them a job to do, sort of thing.
Yeah, I think that's a lovely idea. Yes, find to express the poem in a different medium, if you like. And this is an English class. Yeah. The other thing is, if you're preparing a special edition, and this might fit in with the visual idea, a special edition of this poem, you know, it's centenary, or it's it's an important moment in this poem's life, if you like. And so how should it be presented? Does it need any explanation? Should there be some notes going along with it? And if you were looking at a number of poems, you could go into role as the editor, you know, of the special edition of poetry, and you know, it's scarcely a role. It's just an organizing kind of thing. Just, you know, what poems, looking at the class, what's your favorite? What poem do you think deserves to be in this special anthology that my company is preparing? So it's the mildest role, but its function is to elicit answers clearly from the group, or ideas or opinions, and then what illustrations should go with the poems. You know, can you find them? Can you create them, or can you find them? Maybe, you know. Can you go out and take photographs that would go with them? You know, so I think that would work maybe quite nicely. So yes, dear.
Sorry, I'm just thinking, Emma, you just emailed and said that you'd done something with My Last Duchess. What was that?
Yeah, so with my year 10s, I had a box with like some tea-stained diary entry fragments, and also fragments from the poem of My Last Duchess. And we set it out like a murder had happened. So I had like a dress as a prop laid out on the floor, and a wine bottle on its side with a goblet on its side. And I had them come in and sort of around the space, had my lantern on. And I was like, what do we think's happened here? And I let them, like, we had a bit of a discussion. I wasn't actually in role, but it was like just sort of discussing around the box. And then I had them take the diary entries out and read them. And then we were like, what do you think's happened? And yeah, I had then the portrait of the Duchess on the board as well a bit later. And we sort of spoke about what we think was happening.
I think that's absolutely wonderful ideas. And I think because it turns it into a mystery, and which they're sort of solving. And it's a most mysterious poem anyway. I don't know if you've read the novel, The Marriage Portrait, which is wonderful. It's, to my mind, it's kind of almost built on that poem. And I think Dorothy has done some work on poems, hasn't she? She's not My Last Duchess, but things like My Name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. And I think, you know, that poetry is, again, another whole wonderful realm of possibilities that sometimes will fit with drama, and I think Browning is a particularly useful link. So thanks very much. I think we're almost winding to a close, are we, David?
We are, yes. So thank you very much, Cecily, for and for allowing us to watch this seminar tutorial with the students. And thank you, Theo. Thank you, all the students. And I'm sure you found that really useful. And it's a lovely way to end the day. I know it wasn't our idea. We were going to have it live, a live workshop in UCL. But then there was a plan for a tube strike today. So we called everything off. And then, of course, they cancelled the tube strike. Of course, yes. But we went ahead on this form as well. So thank you, really, for giving us a glimpse of teacher in role and how you might handle Romeo and Juliet. And it's always lovely to see you in practice. Cecily O'Neill will be at the conference this weekend. So you'll meet some of the students in person there.
Right.
And Cecily is, one of the stars of drama in education world. I mean, she's the only person I know who at the end of the conference always has people queuing up for her autograph. So, and I know tomorrow I'm going into school. I'm going to Altham Hill School, where you used to be a teacher, I think.
Yes, I'd done quite a bit of supply teaching around here and there. I had a horrible part-time job at Catford County School, I think. Oh God. And I do remember a class where one of the students jumped out of the window on the ground floor, I have to say. But that was something from which I'm still recovering. But Eltham Hill was a whole other delight, really. There was a headmistress called Miss Timberlake, who was very much old school. And the minute I got there, I wanted time off so I could go on drama courses. And she did eventually let me go. And those were at Goldsmiths mostly. So the conference is a kind of going home. And I used to live in Blackheath and so on. So all of that is, I'll be looking forward to, and really looking forward to seeing some of you there. And thank you so much for your wonderful ideas. I'm going to steal them all, which is what we do as drama teachers. I think we're magpies, and I think we take what we learn from other people and we change it into something that suits us and our personalities and our approach and our school setting. And, the road isn't always smooth and even, but I think it's worth sticking with it. And many, many thanks for all your input this afternoon. It's been really lovely meeting you.